Hello, Year 6. I hope you're ready for Chapter 22. This will be in two parts, so I hope you enjoy it because I wonder what's happened to Laura. Let's see if we can find out. Laura! Oh, Laura, please wake up! Laura opened her eyes. The room was shrouded in a pea soup fog, and it stayed that way when she blinked. She shut them again. When she woke some time later, the mist had cleared, but she was in a rocking chair. At least that's what it felt like. She had a splitting headache and her skin burned as if it had been rubbed with fresh chilies. A blurred brown figure lurched towards her and she flinched in terror. Then, mercifully, darkness descended again. After a second, or perhaps an hour, a familiar voice said, "Laura, I'm begging you to wake up. If you don't, we're dead for sure." Laura's eyes flew open. "Tariq, I thought you'd been kidnapped." He gave a laugh that was somewhere between relief and a sob. "I have been, stupid. So have you." The fuzzy edges around his thin, kind face and shining black hair dissolved. The room came into view, only it wasn't a room, but the cramped, airless cabin of a boat. A powerful swell rocked the grubby mattress on which Laura was lying, adding to her discomfort. Her ankles were taped together and her wrists bound with a blue nylon rope. Her skin burned with a slow, tormenting fire, and she would have done anything for a drink. She tried to make sense of her surroundings. The last thing she remembered was answering the door to the pizza boy. Tariq was roped to a chair, but he was craning forward as far as his bonds would allow, his amber eyes wide with concern. "Where are we?" she asked. "Your guess is as good as mine. I was blindfolded when they brought me here. From what I've overheard, we're on a boat moored near Zena, just off the coast of Cornwall. We're waiting for something, a delivery." It was a shock to hear him speak English, especially in such a clear, educated way. A lilt in his speech was the only trace of an accent. Temporarily forgetting they were in a life-threatening situation, Laura wriggled upright and glared at him. "You lied to me, Tariq." "Well, I suppose it's not lying when you never said anything. But the whole times we were friends, you pretended you couldn't speak English. Now I feel like an idiot." Beneath his dark skin, his face flushed crimson. He squirmed in his chair and looked so ashamed that Laura immediately felt awful. "Sorry, Tariq, I shouldn't have said that." "No, it is I who is sorry," he said. "You will never know how much I hated myself for what I have done. I'm sorry for hurting you, for the notes in the bottle, and most of all for deceiving you. It is because of me that you are here. If they harm you, I will never forgive myself. My only excuse is that, for me, the North Star was a living hell. Some days I felt I might die of loneliness if the work didn't kill me first. Then you walked in, the kindest person I have ever known, and the sun shone for me for the first time since my father died. I knew that for your safety I should have nothing to do with you, but I couldn't help myself." "But you told Mr. Mukhtar to say to me that I was boring, and my stories were boring, and you never wanted to see me again. You laughed at me." Tariq burst out. "That's because he threatened to kill us both if I didn't find a way of getting rid of you." He told me that slaves couldn't have friends, only owners. He said they were like pets or furniture. He told me, once a slave, always a slave. I think, Laura said, you'd better start at the beginning. It had all begun innocently enough in Bangladesh, a densely populated country in the Indian subcontinent prone to watery natural disasters. Tariq's grandfather, a teacher's son, borrowed 75 cents from a quarry owner to pay the bride price of Tariq's grandmother. They were very much in love, and he was afraid another would marry her if he hesitated. That debt is now in thousands, said Tariq. But how? Asked Laura. Even with interest, how could they have to pay back more than $1? Tariq sighed. My grandparents' story is a common one in Bangladesh and India. Millions of people are in this situation. They borrow money from quarry or factory owners who make them pay by working them up to 12 hours a day. My grandfather, and later my father, slaved from dawn to dark, breaking rocks in a quarry. But the owner of the pit charged him rent to live in his small grass hut on the site. He also charged them for the use of water drawn from a dirty well and for the flour for our chapatis. On special occasions, we ate a scrawny kitchen, and he charged us for that too. In the summer, the boulders heated up to the temperature of fire. From the age of 6, I joined them, and we were soon covered in burns and calluses. Even so, our debt grew each month. We were locked in bondage. When Tariq's grandparents died, their debt was inherited by Tariq's father, who in turn passed it on to Tariq, with one difference. Tariq's mother, Amrita, was descended from a line of gifted tapestry artists. When the quarry owner's wife discovered Amrita's lineage, she pulled her from the pit. Frail Amrita slaved for even longer hours, this time making tapestries which were worth much more than crushed gravel. The quarry owner's wife demanded she train Tariq, then 6, to take over from her if anything should happen to her. I was 8 when my mother was rushed into hospital. She died 3 days later. She had never received a cent of compensation for her tapestries, yet the quarry owner told us our hospital bills and funeral costs meant that my dad owed him so much money we would never be free if we lived 5 lifetimes. Not long afterwards, my father had a heart attack while smashing a boulder. Before my 9th birthday, I was alone in the world and responsible for my family's debt. Tears were running down Laura's face. Never in her life had she heard such a horrific story, but Tariq's eyes stayed dry. 2.5 years later, he went on, the quarry owner's wife passed away after floods caused a cholera outbreak at the pit. Her sister arrived at the funeral. No prizes for guessing her name. Laura dried her eyes on her sleeve and gasped as she made the connection. Mrs. Mukhtar? His expression told her the answer. At first, I believed she was different. She looked like the Bollywood stars I'd seen on posters, like an angel. She was nice to me. It was years since I'd been praised or treated like a human being, but she raved about the tapestries and told me that I was very talented. The day before she and Mr. Mukhtar were due to leave, she came to me and said that they could not bear to think of a boy such as I going to waste in the quarry. They were going to pay off my debt and take me to England, where I would be educated and live with them as their own son. She described golden beaches, cobbled streets, and quaint artists' studios, and said that in exchange for doing some tapestries and helping out around their grocery store, I'd live in a life of luxury few in my situation would dare to dream of. And you believed her? I wanted to believe her, said Tarek. To me, everything was better than a lifetime in the heat, dirt and thunder of the quarry, with me making tapestries on my own while my friends broke rocks in the baking sun. I could hardly sleep for imagining sunny beaches, blue sea and ice cream. I thought I might be a servant to her and Mr. Mukhtar. I didn't realise I'd be a slave. I know now that slavery comes in many different forms. That's the end of part 1.